What's up, everybody? Metal Dave here, along with my co-host Jason McMaster. Welcome to another episode of the Talk Louder podcast.
Welcome to
Today,
hell.
yeah, that's what I should have said. I should have said "Welcome to Hell."
I said it for
How
you. It's all good.
appropriate!
Yeah.
How appropriate, man.
Mhm.
We are joined by heavy metal royalty today. I feel like I say that a lot on this show. That's
Well, we're lucky to be
we're
able
lucky.
to repeat ourselves with such an awesome term. So,
Yeah. We have Abaddon, drummer for Venom, on the show today. You talk about an influential band. I think it's safe to say they basically were the forefathers of the whole black metal, death metal, extreme metal movement, whatever you want to call it.
it's been said and very well documented that the words black and metal were first put together by the guys in Venom. So
Right? Title
that
of the
kind of
second
like
album.
single-handedly created a genre that I feel like metal fans didn't know what to expect, because you've got Black Sabbath and people know what that, the beginnings of Black Sabbath started, probably not at all like Venom started, but the idea of calling your band Black Sabbath and calling your band Venom, and then realizing later on that a term black metal probably was very well taken from the album by Venom, Black Metal.
Yeah. Yeah,
Important guest today,
absolutely.
is what Dave was saying. Very important.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you talk to the guys in Slayer, Metallica, Anthrax, Pantera, they will all point to Venom as a major, major influence. And I mean, just extreme to the max. There was no band like that when they came out. They were just raw. They had there was a punk element to their music, and then of course the whole satanic imagery was just completely over the top. You mentioned Black Sabbath, and they were kind of considered this dark, foreboding, sinister band, which they were. But Venom took that to 11.
There were very few. There were very few others at the time writing as dark a lyric. We of course you start with Black Sabbath and that imagery and that sort of style, if you could call it. I don't even think was really dabbled too much even by King Diamond at the time. Merciful Fate, I believe they were called. Merciful Fate was called either the Brats or Black Rose or something like that. You guys can feel free to correct me in the comments there, but there was a band called Lucifer's Friend. There was a band called Coven. There were even bands that were well seated in the new wave of British heavy metal as late as 79, 80, 81. Witchfinder General. A lot of these hellish themes were popular at the, not as popular as they even would be now with all of the subgenres of even just black metal, extreme metal. But by early 80s and Venom's created path for Bathory and bands like Bathory.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Definitely highly influential, especially in the underground. And oddly enough, a lot of their peers at the time, Metallica, Slayer, Exodus, went on to take that extreme form of music and actually broaden the appeal and have it become almost mainstream, especially if you're talking Metallica, Anthrax, bands like that. But they all point back to Venom as a huge influence. You just have to love the over the top spirit, the blatant blasphemy. They had no problem. As Abaddon says in our conversation, it was all about shock. More, more, more. Just shock, shock, shock.
That's important to emphasize that it was all about being bigger and louder and meaner and bigger flames and bigger amps and bigger drum risers.
Yeah.
And they were their competition as far as being bigger were the bands they grew up with, like Deep Purple and Queen and Black Sabbath and of course Kiss. So to have bigger pyro and bigger everything, and be more evil than the most evil song they could think of that that day. They're having breakfast, tea, and they're going, what are we going to write about today? How evil can we be today? Thanks, Mom. That kind of shit. It's
It's
kind of
whatever it is, it's got to be more evil than yesterday.
right. And I think that's all they tried to do. And they had done very few shows, if any show, 2, maybe 3, before they found themselves in New York with Metallica opening for them before Kill 'Em All even came out. It's kind of sick. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Before I forget, I want to mention a very grateful thank you to a guy named Jack. I'm gonna mess up your name. Jack Galar. It's Galar. Jack is a Canadian rock fan who on Facebook has been posting for years now. Whenever he plays a record, he puts the album art, leans it against the speakers, and takes a photo, and he posts it. And I enjoy seeing those and what Jack is listening to. Like, I look forward to it. So one of the reasons I still open fucking Facebook, which is going to be the death of me one day. But he's one of the guys, and I just started up a conversation with Jack one day, and we got to be Facebook friends, which, God, I just threw up in my mouth a little bit saying that. But the point is great. The outcome is great because we're cut from the same cloth. All his record collection is phenomenal. He starts talking about Venom and Anthony Bray, Abaddon, our guest today, and saying how he's just this really sweet guy, this really important, kind of fun, easygoing man. And I'm like, holy crap. And he goes, you should have him on the podcast. And I'm like, duh.
Yeah.
So Jack, thank you so much for getting me in touch with Abaddon, Anthony Bray, to bring him into the Talk Louder podcast world. Dave, I think that your questions were excellent today. You brought up the whole Spinal Tap world. You brought up I think that both of us tag teaming the questions today for someone we're so excited about, excited to talk to. And we could have gone 3 more hours.
Yeah.
This is not our longest podcast. I think we did 1:15.
Yeah, but I mean, huge thanks to Abaddon. I mean, he's overseas in England at the time of this conversation, so different time zone. It's evening over there. It's Sunday. He basically gave up his Sunday evening to spend time with us, which is really, really cool. And as you said in the opening sequence of the episode, 18-year-old you and 17-year-old me can't believe that we are talking to Abaddon today on the Talk Louder podcast.
I was telling Abaddon, I was saying, my 18-year-old self, if you told that 18-year-old Jason McMaster that I was going to be hanging out a Sunday morning for us and a Sunday evening for Abaddon, I would have just said, you're a dumbass. That's not happening. Wake up and it's time for school.
Exactly.
So we're happy to have you here today. It's an honor to hang out with one of the originators of something that is pretty much a game changer, if you will, that sort of changed the way just rock and roll was looked at. Forget boxes and all of the journalists putting coming up with a snappy name for a style of music and whatever, but you guys were out at a time where even the term heavy metal was still fairly new. So all of us that were into heavy metal, when we saw your artwork, your fucking logo, or much less heard the first time we heard anything by Venom, the curse words come, the excitability, the shock, where do I begin? What the fuck is this? Ultimately is what most of us were trying to figure out. How do you how do you feel about that reaction and ultimately starting what and please comment on something that's basically crossover, whereas all these styles thrown into a bucket at once, and you guys were innocent. I feel. Tell us how you feel.
I think we were just three young guys from a heavily industrial part of England, coming together with common passions, you know, for satanic imagery, for horror movies, for the love of Motorhead and all things punk and over the top. And we just wanted to do everything. We wanted to do absolutely everything. If there was a photograph of Dave Lee Roth grinning, then there was a photograph of me hiding my face, you know. If there was a logo, a lovely logo by Iron Maiden, then there was a one that you almost couldn't read by Venom. Everything about the band, we didn't set out to do one thing. We set out to do it all, and it was very, very easy. It was very easy. We were ridiculed. We were ignored. Need Records didn't want to put a record out. We did a 3-track demo tape, and we sent it to one of the guys at Sounds Magazine, which became Kerrang Magazine, Jeff Barton, and Jeff did like a 2-page spread on it. So the guy from Need Records thought, hang on, whether I like the band or not, whether I like their imagery or not, whether I like their bullshit or not, they're going to sell records. They're going to just sell records. They're going to sell out concert halls. We had a manager who was exactly the same as us. He didn't come from a music business background. He didn't have any acumen. He wasn't an accountant. He wasn't a solicitor. He was just my mate. And he just sat down with a telephone and thought, you know what? I'm just going to ring people up and tell them how fucking good Venom are. And it just worked. It just worked. The fire that I still have. I played last night. I played a full Venom set last night with some guys, and the room was fucking full. It was chocker, and we crashed through about 20 Venom songs, and the passion was incredible. And it's not just people of our age or people like yourself who were inspired when we were younger. There's a lot of young kids now because people are talking about Venom in the same way they talk about Metallica or Slayer. They add us into those conversations, and these kids know their history and they want to have a look. And last night there were equally as many sort of 18, 19, 20-year-olds as there were 40, 45-year-olds.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's amazing. Yeah, I think there's kind of been a resurgence of sort. You take bands like Midnight and Power Trip and Fugitive. There's some young bands out there that sort of reintroduced a new generation to the inspiration of Venom. And you see the T-shirts, and it doesn't surprise me that you're saying that you're seeing younger people at your audience.
Absolutely. And I mean, the imagery's still there, you know. So if a young guy sees a black metal head on a T-shirt and the T-shirt's washed out and it's antiqued, he's buying that for sort of 50 quid, you know, whatever.
Or more.
And wearing it proudly, you know.
Yeah.
There are records going for sale for ludicrous sums of money.
Oh yeah.
And it's not just older collectors buying them now. Like I say, it's a whole generation coming through that respect the band and respect what we're about, you know, what we were about, what I'm still about.
Yeah. You mentioned the imagery, and you designed the original Venom logo and the album cover for the first album. And I would argue that image is as recognized as like the Ramones logo or the Misfits logo. I mean, it's universal now. Take us back to the beginning when you were coming up with that concept, and then it's got to blow your mind that it's so widely recognized after all these years. It was probably something that started innocently enough in your bedroom or something.
It was. I mean, it was. I had myself and Eric, who was the band's manager that I'm telling you about. And the first singer in Venom, guy called Clive Archer, three of us worked together. We were apprentices in a heavy industry engineering firm. And whenever I had 5 minutes to myself, I would just take a pen and paper out and start drawing these logos and coming up with stage show ideas. I was going and stealing bits of steel pipe so I could make bombs, make pyrotechnics, and this kind of thing. Buying black powder, so we could we had pyrotechnics at the first couple of rehearsals. I had a drum riser at the first rehearsal. It was always going to be fucking over the top. There was nobody in there. There was, three of us or four of us. But all of that, I grew up with Rainbow and Deep Purple and Black Sabbath and all this sort of stuff. And Kiss was in the background too. So you're seeing all this this stage show and this imagery. And it was just a case of, well, I love Motorhead. I go and see Motorhead all the time. I love Thin Lizzy. Thin Lizzy are fucking one of my favourite bands.
Yeah.
I go and see Motorhead, and I think there's a place where they stop. And I think Lemmy agreed that. Lemmy said, Motorhead are rock and roll.
Mm-hmm.
He never claimed Motorhead were heavy metal.
Right.
And I saw that and I thought, well, there's further to push this. This Kiss, they've got a lot of bombs, but they look very safe. They're standing right next to them. They look very safe, very sparkly. I thought, if Venom are going to do that, it's not going to be safe. It's going to blow fucking holes in the place,
Yeah.
And the imagery was the same. It was Dennis Wheatley, Anton LaVey. It was Hammer House of Horror. It was The Exorcist.
Yeah.
All that stuff was brand new then, and it was hitting us right in the face as kind of teenagers, 17, 18. And we're getting smacked right in the face with all this stuff and just soaking it all up. Punk was still around. We were guys with long hair, but we were into punk. We were into the skinhead movement, and the bands were getting faster. Were getting heavier. Heavy metal itself started going through the thing called new wave of British heavy metal, and because of the timing, we often get lumped in with that. But if you ask any Venom fans, any long-term Venom fans, they'll tell you we had nothing to do with new wave of British heavy metal. We weren't about being melodic. We were about being expressive, about being over the top, about being in your face. Whether it was an effect on a record, like I took a chainsaw to a studio door, to the hasp on the door, and we put it at the very beginning of a song called Black Metal.
Yeah.
So that when you, I mean, know this, when you're a kid and you're playing your vinyl, you're very precious about it. So you're very careful how you put the needle on at the beginning. So you put it on very gently, and then the song starts nicely. Well, it doesn't on black metal. You put it on, and it goes straight into a fucking screaming, load of mayhem, So I mean, it's all about shock. Everything is about shock. When I first took the logo into Neat Records, again, the guy wasn't sold on Venom at all. And when I took the logo, and he said, "I can't read that," I said, "Yeah, but you're talking about it. Yeah. We're now having a conversation about something." I said, "When you put that in a shop window, people are going to look at it and say, what the fuck is that?"
Right.
Well, they're talking about it. They're picking it up. They're looking at it. If you've just got a picture of, I don't know, naked girls on the front sitting on a Corvette or something, it's just another metal album.
Yeah.
If you go in to buy that album, fair enough, you'll pick it up and you'll buy it. But with Venom, you'll go in, you'll look at it and you'll think, what the hell is that? And the amount of people that have told me they had to sneak Welcome to Hell into the house because their parents wouldn't let them have it. So they had to sneak it in and hide it under the bed, and play it when their dad was at work or something.
That's when you know you're doing stuff right.
Well, that's what it's come to mean, yeah.
Yeah.
At the time, it was just hilarious, I mean, we were three funny characters as well, with all this horror and everything we were growing up with. We were also growing up with Monty Python, and we could see what was funny about people's reaction to a lot of this,
Yeah.
And we were happy that we were getting those reactions. And when I look back, there are still bands now, predominantly Norwegian, sort of Scandinavian black metal bands, who do hide their face when they're having photographs taken. But Deep Purple, AC/DC, Led Zeppelin would never have done any of that.
No.
To have a photograph taken where you can't see who the guy is, and a logo which you can't read, and a pentagram on the front, and some blasphemous lyrics on the back, just makes you want to either love it or hate it. There's no middle ground.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, that was the part of what I was talking about earlier. Is you're a, and I'm generalizing now. You're a rock and roll band. You're a power trio. You know, you're all of these things that allude to the standard rock band that you know that the world has had at that time had known for years and years. Respectable, loose term there, but when you're in a record shop and you're a kid, you're a teenager, and you pick up, you're like, what in the fuck is this? Because there's no social media, it's just you and a magazine. You know, we're in Texas, we're in Austin, Texas. In 1981, I was scouring the city at little record stores, which there was only like 2 or 3 of them at the time, for a Kerrang magazine, for any English rock entertainment rag I could find, or underground fanzines, of course, where you guys were all over that shit. Because of the tape trading scene that was big between 80, 81, 82, and 83 and on. It's still a cult of some sort, the tape trading thing. I know guys who have walls of demos that came out in those precious years in the early 80s. Anyway, and they're worth thousands and thousands of dollars. These fucking demo tape, cassette tape. Anyway, the point I was making is you pick something like that up, and the first time I ever heard or saw "Home Taping is Killing Music and So Are Venom" made me want to buy the record. And like you say, when you drop the needle, you're like, what the fuck is this? I go back to that. It's the logo that looks like, nowadays I call it tree branches. It just looks like tree branches. This is my logo. It's just a bunch of that. And there's no way I can read that. But you see the pentagram, and like you're saying, you see the pentagram and you read the ferociously inappropriate lyrics on the back cover next to a band photo where you guys look like you just escaped from the loony bin, wearing your mother's pants, kind of a thing. makes it this whole thing. You're like, oh, I'm starting to get it, but now I just need to connect with the music, and I know that I'm going to dive right in. And that was what was attractive to me.
See, when we first came to America, the first gig we did in Staten Island with a young band called Metallica, opening up for us. There was only 3 of us on stage, and the bass player's guitar went off. So he just threw it on the floor and started singing. So that's a third of the band gone within the first couple of songs. All the pyro blew out his back line, blew out the speakers on his back line. And one of the pyros exploded and blew a hole in the floor, which ruptured a pipe, which then started pissing water onto the stage. But we just carried on. And that was the first half an hour of the first show was a fucking shambles. But we finished it, and it's legendary. It's a stuff of legends.
Yes, it is. Was that one of the Johnny Zazula promoted shows?
It was, yeah. John was one of few people that would have the balls big enough to take us over. We stayed for a weekend, and I set fire to his kitchen.
What? How did that happen? Some toast gone wrong, or what?
He went out. We played the Friday night, we played the Sunday night, and Anthrax were playing on the Saturday night. So John and his wife went out. These 2 guys who were kind of hanging out with us, a guy called Reb and a guy called Bob, they went out and I guess they were hunters, and they went out and came back in with this leg of fucking venison, which I rammed in the oven to cook, but it was too big and it was spitting grease all over, so the whole ceiling caught light, and it was like fucking
Oh no.
But But I mean, it was just more of the same, just more of the same. We took we turned up. I think it was about 22 of us turned up. I mean, now if you took somebody to go for a couple of gigs, it'd be the band and that would be it. It was 22 of us turned up, and we took a whole back line from England. We flew it all over.
Wow.
Instead of just renting some stuff. Well, and then the pyro blew a hole in it anyway. What are you going to do? It's all we knew.
Yeah.
It's all we knew,
how much of that gear did you fly? First, was that an expensive cargo bill?
It was. I mean, it was a good few grand at the time.
Yeah, I would imagine.
It was quite a lot of money,
Yeah.
But I mean, John put us up in his house, and it was just fucking mayhem, because basically we were just partying. We weren't professional musicians there to do a professional job. We were, again, just a bunch of guys and their mates hanging out in fucking New York, and just, when you're going to get a chance to do that again. As far as we were concerned, this is all a one-off.
Yeah. What was your...
Sorry,
go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, people kind of ask, how did it start and how did it... We just did it. We just got on with it, and whatever happened from the outside world happened to us. There wasn't really any planning. There was just kids having fun, and being a bit obnoxious, and a bit out there.
Yeah.
And just whatever was going to happen was going to happen. And to be playing the second gig of your life, second proper professional gig of your life in New York City, well, yeah, of course, why not? That's just what happens to bands. Bands just, other bands would turn around, other bands that we kind of hung out with, like Raven and Tigers of Pantang and Fist, went, that's not what fucking happens. You play the clubs to bored-looking old men who don't even fucking bother with you, and then you finish and you've got to drag all your gear down 30 flights of fucking stairs again, back into a shitty van or your dad's car. That's what you do. That's called what they used to call paying your dues.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Getting a start at this. Well, Venom didn't do that. We just went to America with a big fucking back line. It's insane when you think about it, but it's something I still do. It's just how it is.
Did you guys have what I call disposable jobs at the time? You said you were working at a firm. Did you guys have the money in order, or did you guys really have to sweat and scrounge to pay to take all your shit to New York and then to destroy it in New York?
John helped a lot.
Oh, good.
Obviously, Dave Woods at Neat Records was selling shed loads of records, which enabled us to do this.
Oh, good.
But no, we were on when we basically what happened was I was called in the office at my at the place I worked. I was called in the office, and all the guys with the suits on were sitting there, and they had this big chart, which mapped out. I mean, it'd be on a computer now, but it mapped out every day of the year, and every day was cut into half. And what you were supposed to have was a clear chart. And if you had 2 weeks off, your chart would be black because you wouldn't be there. That was your 2 weeks holiday. At Christmas, you'd have a week off, so that would be black. But if you were late in the morning, then half would be red and half would be black. So the guy's sitting there and he said, we've called you in because, you know yourself, you're very rarely here. And he said, this chart should all be white with just your holidays blacked out. And he held it up to the light, and it was like a colored fucking quilt, it was red and black all over the fucking shop. And he said, and what makes this worse, he said, your friend Eric Cook, who I believe is the manager of your band, and he held Eric's up and it was identical.
Right.
The two of them were exactly the same. And he said, look, he says, he came up with the best line I've heard in my entire life to a kid who's like 17, 18. And he said, you have to decide if you want to fuck off around the world being famous as a rock star, or if you want to work for us. And I said, well, that's a stupid fucking question to ask a teenage kid, isn't it?
Yeah.
What do you think I want to do? Do you think I want to go out and get loads of girls paying attention and drink loads of booze and have loads of fun and play to thousands of people? Or do you think I want to come in here every day and fucking scratch me arse? And he said, yeah, okay, just pick up your tools and fuck off.
Yeah.
You
That was
you
the end
were
of that.
you landed in America at a pretty magical time. You're talking about doing shows with Metallica opening for you, Slayer open for you. That music was pretty much unprecedented at that time. And so those bills kind of make sense, but I wanted to know if in the early days of Venom, did you ever play on any really weird bills because somebody wasn't sure where to put you?
I don't think so, not really. We played with a lot of sort of more mainstream acts. Venom was always kind of headlining things, and we were lucky enough if we went to festivals or something like this, we were kind of closing the shows. So the only one I remember, because I was a massive fan of the band, was a band called Blackfoot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they were supporting us at a gig in Finland. And I just stood with my mouth open, wide
Wow.
open at the side of the stage. And I was just so fucking gobsmacked that they were on there, and that we were going to be playing after them.
Yeah.
But no, not really. You talk about us and Slayer and Exodus and all this kind of stuff. When we started playing, yeah, it was new, it was fresh, it was exciting. But for every city and every gig we hit, there were thousands of kids with exactly the same mentality, had just been sitting waiting for this shit to happen.
Yeah.
They were the same mentality as us. They were the same thought patterns, and they would just go absolutely fucking crazy. And that's where all the stage dive and shit started, and all the mosh pits and all that kind of thing. All grew out of that, just that mentality of like, fuck the church, fuck the school, fuck work, fuck mother, fuck father. I'm just going to go and have some fun with my mates. At some point, I've just got to let loose. And that's exactly what it was. It was released. It was band or a couple of bands for a couple of hours on a weekend. And don't forget, I'm never forgetting this, but a lot of those people, they had to work in shitty jobs and chose to come and spend that dollar on us. And buy our merch and this kind of thing. And it wasn't, that money wasn't free. It wasn't handed to them. They had to go and work for it. And they had to get that cash. And they chose to come and spend it on us. And I'll never forget that.
No.
Yeah. Yeah. You when you're out with Slayer and Metallica in those early days, obviously you couldn't imagine that they were going to take that style of music and be successful with it and make it mainstream. But they did. But Venom has always kind of remained an underground sort of cult band. What do
Yeah.
you think is the reason for that? What separates you, especially compared to, say, like Slayer? Because Slayer, in a lot of ways, kind of mirrors Venom in terms of the satanic imagery and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But why were those bands able to take that extreme sound and be successful with it? And Venom had all the same ingredients, but never quite got to that level of mainstream popularity.
I think, in my opinion, the main thing was that part of the craziness that glued Venom together as individuals was also, at that point, coming unstuck. So at a point where we should have been on the crest of a wave, where we're doing At War with Satan and we're doing Possessed and this kind of thing, the guitarist was wanting to leave and he's wanting to play, like, I don't know, Whitesnake, Motley Crue songs. And we were like, no, we've got to get heavier. We've got to get faster. We've got to get more over the top. Look at Slayer. Look at how they're developing and changing. We've got to be doing that. We've got to be in front of them every time, at every turn. We need to be doing that. And the guitarist was away, and like that didn't take long for ridiculously childish arguments to unsettle things. It's the same thing. If you've got this unhinged kind of craziness, I don't know, maybe it's a motor driver, maybe it's a guy doing sort of Indy or Formula One or something, and he's taking all the risks and he's taking all the chances and he's giving you all the excitement, and race after race after race. At some point, the daft cunt's going to crash, and that's what Venom did. We crashed. We crashed and burned, and it was only we didn't have a big management company to come along and say, look, he has XYZ amount of money to buy a new house, or he has a new car, go and work it out, or any tour promoters to come along and say, look, he has another tour, he has XYZ amount of money, and different hotels, you don't even have to stay with each other. There was nobody doing any of that. Eric, as I said, who was our manager, was just another one of us. He was just a mate, and he did his level best to hold it all together, but it just didn't happen, you know. So whether we would have been mainstream or not, we wouldn't have done. I'd like to think we wouldn't have done what Metallica did, which was to bend their shape, looks-wise, integrity-wise, music-wise. They changed to suit a bigger audience, which worked for them, you know.
Yeah.
Like I say, I think Venom would have carried on trying, in my opinion, trying to get heavier, faster, and louder, and be more over the top and more about the blast beats and all this kind of thing, and the stuff that's happening sort of now. You know, I would want to be at the forefront of all these new metal bands.
Yeah. What's your take on some of the bands you've inspired, especially like the Norwegian, a lot of the death metal, black metal bands? I mean, now you've got bands that I think some of the humor of Venom is lost on them. They're burning churches, they're killing their band members. What's your take on some of the people that followed in your footsteps and sort of took that music to another level?
I mean, firstly, I'm very proud of it because it's like being a parent. You know, you've got these kids coming along and they're citing you as a you know, something to be looked up to. But you know, I mean, with the church burns, well, you can go too far. You know, there is a limit. You know, going and killing bandmates and whatnot. But I think the fact that we could be a central pin. I mean, you talk about bands, black metal bands up in Norway and whatever, but you can also talk about the German bands like Destruction and Sodom and Creator.
Yeah.
You can talk about Pantera. You can talk about Cradle of Filth. All of these bands don't necessarily come back. They all, you know, they come back to Venom. They come back to a central place. You know, a Norwegian band, over the top Norwegian band doing blast beats and these guttural vocals sound nothing like Pantera and nothing like Destruction. But when you bring the roots back, the roots come back to Venom. They don't necessarily come back to Black Sabbath anymore. They come back to Venom. Right. And all those, you know, thrash metal, death metal, speed metal, all comes from Venom.
Yeah.
Right. We were asked in an interview, the guy came from Kerrang magazine and he had the copy of this, you know, the new magazine with him, and it had Bon Jovi on the front cover. And he said, you know, to me, I don't think you're a heavy metal band. And we said, we're not. If that's the heavy metal Bible, that's Kerrang magazine, the heavy metal Bible, and it's got Bon Jovi on the front. That's a pop rock singer.
Yeah.
And if that's what your magazine's about, it's nothing to do with us. And he said, well, in that case, what are you? And we said, we're Venom metal, black metal, death metal, speed metal. And he was like, whoa, wait, I need to write all this down. Now, those terms hadn't been coined before then.
How early of an interview was that? What year do you recall?
It was with a guy called Gary Bushell, and it would have been probably just after black metal. We were probably still working on demos for A War with Satan.
Yeah.
Okay. And Gary was basically he was a punk, and there was a couple of pages, I think, in Kerrang at the time, which was still mentioned about punk bands and still writing up about punk bands. So Gary saw this crossover in us, and he came up to Newcastle to interview us, and that's what we said. And all those genres that now are very different all came out of one heated interview, you know?
Yeah. I want to go back to Welcome to Hell and your artwork and the logo just for a minute, because I'm always intrigued when someone creates an image that becomes iconic. I mentioned the Ramones and the Misfits earlier, and I'm not trying to get into how much money is in your bank account, but is it safe to say the licensing of that image is still a pretty good revenue stream for you?
It is. I mean, it has become more so semi-recently because the other member of the band had done a deal with a company where he was pocketing all the money. So I've gotten with another company now with a good legal team, and we're kind of getting it to a point where it'll be a good income.
Yeah. There's a famous line about the Ramones that says they made more money off T-shirts than they did off album sales.
can well believe that.
Yeah.
Can well believe that.
Speaking of album covers, I wanted to ask you about the Possessed album cover because apparently your son is one of the children on the album cover. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, John. Yeah, he. It was funny because he was at the studio, and the photographer Richie, the other child is his daughter. And what I set up was I got a load of toys like teddy bears, this kind of thing. And before the kids turned up, I took all the stuffing out and I filled it with meat. Filled all the teddy bears with meat and whatnot. And I said to the kids, I want a picture of you fighting over the teddy bears, arguing, fighting, and pulling on the teddy bears, so that what would happen was the stitching would come away, all the meat would fall out, and I'd get a picture of the kids' reaction, the shocked reaction. But of course, we did it, and the kids were just so fucking shocked. So what I wound up with was a picture of two kids kind of staring, at the back wall in utter shock. But yeah, that's John. Yeah.
Yeah,
He lives in Texas now.
Really?
Really?
Yeah, he teaches football, teaches soccer.
What part of
Wow.
Texas?
Oh, I don't know. I know he gets about a lot. He gets a lot of spare time.
Wow.
And he travels a lot.
Wow. What got you hooked on music initially as a kid?
Oh, I was when I was about 8 or 9 or something. I was trusted to be a babysitter for my relatives. And one day, this guy who was going out for a drink with his wife, and he said, "Okay, the kids are in bed. Blah 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 blah. Do you know how to play records?" And I was like, "No, not really." And he went, "Well, here, I'll show you how you have to treat vinyl, because I don't want you to scratch it, But and he put this piece of vinyl on, and I was like, "Oh, okay." He says, "Well, you can play them all. Don't play too loud. Blah blah blah. I'll be back at 9 o'clock." I'm like, "Right, great." And he said, "Oh, by the way, this is a band called Black Sabbath. If you like them, there's more in there. You can just have a dig through and pull it out." And that's how I got into it. I just got into it because it was just handed to me on a plate. We didn't have a record player in the house. We certainly didn't have any rock albums or metal albums. And then a friend who I was at school with later on turned me on to Deep Purple, and that was it. I was away.
Yeah.
Gone.
Yeah. Safe to say.
You've got, at that time, you've got Rainbow coming out brand new. You've got Rush coming out brand new. You've got, like I say, Lizzie were playing. You've got all Motorhead playing. You've got every night in Newcastle, in our city hall, holds maybe 2,500 people. Every night there was a rock gig, and it was £2.50 or £3 to get in. It was nothing. And for a kid, it's like it's another world, seeing these people with all these lights and all this kind of stuff. Van Halen turning up for the first time, fucking incredible.
Wow.
So you were 8 or 9, and you had a family friend turn you on to Black Sabbath. Was there anything prior to that, like something on the radio that maybe you were attracted to?
I quite liked the stuff that was coming through at the time was like Sweet and Slade and that kind of glam rock of stuff.
Yeah, early 70s, early 70s. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and Queen were kind of a part of that as well. So Queen were that kind of rock pop crossover. So when you didn't have when you had a TV but you only had 4 channels, at least one of them on a Thursday night was Top of the Pops, and that would play. And if you were lucky, you would get Sweet or Slade or something like that. And then later on, you'd start getting Iron Maiden, and you'd start getting a little bit of Motorhead. And that's mainstream TV, and you're like, incredible. I mean, the first time I heard Bohemian Rhapsody, I had to tell my parents to be quiet so I could hold the cassette recorder up to the TV to record Bohemian Rhapsody. It was like, incredible.
Was that on Top of the Pops?
Yeah, on Top of the Pops. Yeah.
I lived in England for 3 years in the late 70s, and at that point, I was probably 10, 11, and 12 years old. And I remember watching Top of the Pops, and it was just like you said, it's like you're a kid, and there's this, all of a sudden, this is in your living room, and there's guitars, and in the case of Queen, there's bombs going off. I remember seeing Bohemian Rhapsody on Top of the Pops, and
Exactly.
it was amazing. I mean, it was just mind blowing for a young child to see that imagery on TV. And then later here in America, of course, we had MTV, and that kind of did the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
But,
we saw, like I said, we saw these gods with guitars and drums and whatnot. And when we, as Venom, managed to get a hold of some stuff, some drums and cymbals and whatnot. I mean, it was shit gear, but we got it. One of the first kind of messages we wanted to put out there was that everybody could do this. Everybody, if you want to, don't be looking at Richie Blackmore and thinking, well, it's pointless even trying to do that. Just go and get a guitar. It's like Dave Grohl says, go and get a guitar, get it with your mates in a garage and you'll suck. But so what? Have fun with it. Eventually you won't suck. Eventually you'll have a song together and it'll be an original song and your friends will like it and somebody will buy it.
Yeah. I mean, it worked for the Ramones.
Yeah.
Well, it worked for everybody. Not everybody has the leisure or for fuck's sake, the money to. I mean, that's how me and my friends learned. We didn't have money to take lessons. We were playing pawn shop gear. It was a $50 bass guitar I had, and my favorite bands were the same as everybody else's favorite bands. Elton John, Queen, David Bowie, Alice Cooper, Kiss. And then later, Iron Maiden and Judas Priest and AC/DC and it just grew from there, just like everybody else. But when you throw that together in the garage or whatever, on the weekends or whatever, you are just doing the best you can to hold it together without any prior training. So you're trying to make sounds, and there's nothing more enlightening. Fun. The first couple of amps I ever had, I blew them up because I just played it on 10 all the time because it sounded so fucking ferocious and wrong. It doesn't sound like the album that your favorite new record. It sounds like it's just going to shit, and you love it. The funny thing is your jam sessions are over quick when you blow your bass rig.
Yeah. But you get a couple of quid, and instead of spending it on something else, you spend it on new strings, you spend it on better picks, you spend it on better pedals. You eventually get you get a better guitar. That becomes your obsession.
Well, it never stopped us.
You,
me, and anybody. It never stopped us when we blew the amp or broke a string or you fucking fucked up the skins on your drums, or it never stopped you. You said, "Oh fuck, this is gonna get too," or your parents go, "Man, this is getting expensive. You keep breaking this shit." Like, no, fuck it. I'm gonna keep going. I'll just
keep going. Yeah, fuck it.
I'll just hit pots and pans until I can get some new skins or whatever it is. So I agree with that. So let's talk about something. Venom are also killing music. So back to that.
Yeah.
You guys are not necessarily, just when you hear the first, I mean, now when you think of extreme heavy, loud music, not even using the word metal.
Yeah.
You guys were one of the first to take it to a new level, and for the sake of like, we're over the top. It's going to be louder and faster and crunchier and meaner and more evil, and whatever your definition of evil is or your definition of loud, we're just going to blow it all up, and who cares about tomorrow?
Yeah.
So you guys, your abilities as musicians catered to that attitude. You weren't you can kick my ass if you want for saying this, but you guys were not as good of players as Deep Purple. You guys were not you guys were using what you had that day to create something that was so over. You didn't give a shit. You weren't trying to be Deep Purple or Van Halen, or you didn't give a fuck about any of that. And that is the most beautiful moment Venom, the birth of Venom is the ideas and not necessarily how smart you are or how good of a player you are. Comment on the attitude, that attitude. Like, you know, there's these little kids down the street that can play fucking Space Truck and Spot On, and I don't even know how to tune this fucking thing, and I don't give a shit. Tell me about that.
But can they go away and write another Space Trucking?
Yeah,
that's the trick. It's about, can you now take that little bit that you've learned, set it alight with your passion.
Yeah.
Get some other people who feel exactly the same way, because if you sit in your bedroom on your own, you shop and get pissed off with it. You've got to find some other people with the same passion, the same amount of go-get-it attitude, fuck you attitude. You've got to get with a group of them, and then you're going to go and write Space Truck and the next Space Truck, and you're going to go and write, you know, the next War Pigs. Yeah. And it's going to be more brutal, or it's going to be more. Maybe it's going to be more beautiful. I don't know. Maybe it's going to be more melodic. But you're going to do it. You're going to do it. We were never going to be more melodic. We were never going to be ace players. But we could get in a room. The three of us could get in a room together and make some fucking great noises that when you recorded them, people wanted to play. People wanted to listen to. People wanted to buy, and people still do.
Yeah.
What album in the later half of the Venom catalog do you feel is overlooked? Like you feel that the band was sounding great and you're very proud of it, but it didn't get recognized the way the first 2 or 3 Venom albums are held up as classics.
Yeah, for me, when we changed vocalists and the Fire came back and we did an album called Primeval. That for me was like a rebirth again.
Yeah,
the Fire was back, the interest was back, the gigs were coming in, the T-shirts looked great, the artworks was good. So yeah, Primeval was a really good album for me.
Yeah, and all of your years of putting on this over-the-top stage show, and you mentioned the pyro as early as your first gigs or whatever. What comes to mind as the biggest Spinal Tap moment, if you will, or something that backfired or went wrong?
It sounds to me like the whole fucking thing had a lot of Spinal Tap going on in it.
There's quite a few. One of the best ones, again, we're going back to the first gig at Staten Island. It was a really old vaudevillian theatre. And it didn't have curtains that opened at the front. It had curtains right across the front of the stage, which lifted into the ceiling.
Okay.
The curtains were red velvet, so very heavy. And they had, what would you call it, like a sash along the bottom with like tassels on.
Yeah.
Well, that was coming off because it was so old. The place was so old. But we had two mic stands, one for each of the 2 guitar players. And the mic stands were the boom mic type, which stick out the back.
Yeah.
Well, I came on stage first. I jumped up on the drum riser and I started the first song. Load of pyro went off. The curtain started to lift. These 2 ran on stage and ran up to the mics to shout. And the tassels on the bottom of the curtain had caught the mic stands and lifted them in the air. So the mics were like 15 feet in the air, and these 2 guys were running around looking, where the fuck's the mic? we had to carry on playing, close the curtain, take the mics out, lift the curtain again. So yeah, that one's right up there.
Yeah, oh my God, that's hard to beat as far as those kind of moments. Would that be? Is that the same gig that's what's it called? Is that footage on the VHS original VHS? God, I can't remember. It had a snappy name with Slayer and Exodus.
Oh, right. No, it's that one's got Bloodlust and Witch Hour on it. They were done at a theatre here in Newcastle.
Oh, okay.
That was again because Mantis had decided not to turn up. So when we were filming Slayer and Exodus, Venom was supposed to be filmed as well, but we had 2 filling guitar players.
Right.
So we didn't want to put out such an important video without having Mantis on it. So
Right.
our performance wasn't filmed.
Speaking of videos, you did one for the song Nightmare many years ago, and a band like Venom, we talk to a lot of people on the podcast, and videos are kind of viewed as this thing, this necessary evil, this promotional tool that you have to do, but you're not really into it. In the case of Venom, I would think that because you're so visually oriented, you guys might have actually enjoyed the experience. Am I right, or is that way off base?
No, you're exactly right. That and for all those reasons, it was a new, new-ish media at the time, and like you've just said, MTV was in its heyday. Other music channels were coming up all over the world, and for us to be able to go and do videos and throw them out when we weren't what you would call a touring band, we weren't out there, sort of 300 days of the year gigging. It meant that we could get our visuals and our songs across much easier and to a much bigger audience. And of course, it's promotion. It's getting us those gigs later on and getting the band out there. Quite often, there were festivals or whatever that we had to cancel for one reason or another. But the 3 members, or at least me and Kronos, would still go in person to apologize for not being able to play. And we would put big video screens up and play those videos for people that may not have seen them, to show them a bit about what Venom was about, and to apologize and to say, this is what we look like. We're going to come back next year, so this is what you'll see. And that worked. We did it 2 or 3 times, and it worked pretty good.
Yeah.
By the way, I was referring to the Ultimate Revenge.
Yes.
I was referring to that, which I have multiple copies of, but that has been probably bootlegged 1 million times.
Has to have been, yeah.
Yeah, well, it's all over YouTube now. It's such a fucking crazy new world. And I wanted to comment that this is piggybacking what you just mentioned about MTV was new, yet videos were not something that just a garage band, for lack of a better terminology. Those were things that you would dream about, as making your first rock video, right? And you didn't much left. You had 3 strings on a 4-string bass and 3 strings on a 6-string guitar, and half your skin's broken on your drum, and you're thinking about a video. You have your pyro's working great, but your instruments are fucked. So you're trying to do what you can just to make ends meet and move forward as a rock band.
Yeah.
When you think about those times, and you think about the technology is the perfect word for kind of what I'm talking about. You guys were on the cusp of all of that, such as all of the bands that are, Metallica and the whole movement was, you were lucky you already had something going on if you were on Top of the Pops.
Yeah.
Somebody called you and booked you, or you had a manager that got booked, you got booked on Top of the Pops as a good example. But after that, that's all there is, unless somebody has the TV hooked up to a video recorder, which I don't think really existed yet. I think there was a beta machine maybe in the late 70s, but fuck, who had that shit? So you didn't really have a way to record. Here you go. You're holding a cassette player or a tape recorder up to the TV to record Queen. That's what I'm talking about. So when you were finally able to, I thought I was cool having 2 VHS players, one hitting play, one hitting record, and I was able to make VHS copies of my band and turn my friends onto it like a tape trading thing. That visual, because it was a visual, Venom was as visual as they were sonically beautifully uncomfortable to listen to, right? So
it was just another string in the bow as it were. It was another place to go, another thing to add to that. And to, like I say, to not just as a promotional tool, but as a way to stand up and say, "Hey, look at me, look at what I'm doing, look what I'm capable of." I mean, when I was kind of responsible for the Nightmare video, and the first place I went was Lumley Castle. It's this huge castle in the middle of Durham over here, and I thought, we're just going to shoot this thing in the castle, and it's going to be, what the fuck are Venom doing in there? It's like and we're screaming Nightmare with this castle in the background, and we're in this grand sort of baronial hall, looking like fucking long-haired punks, and it was like, you don't belong in there. I mean, like, millionaires stayed there, with their wives or their girlfriends or whatever. The McLarens and fucking Lamborghinis parked outside, and we show up like fucking three dirty arseholes, It's all just part of Venom. It's all part of that. And it had to be that time, the 80s. If you did it now, people would just be, "Oh, what the fuck, it's another band."
Yeah.
But,
Right.
it had to be that time. Every single thing about it was perfect.
Yeah.
Even how wrong we were, even how unglued we became, all of it was part of being Venom, and was part of our version of perfection.
Yeah, Venom to me is synonymous with I don't call punk a genre of music. I call it an attitude. Like Lemmy is synonymous with heavy metal or even punk or even crossover because of his disposition. If he could sing like Paul McCartney, he probably would have. He was a fucking Beatles freak. But the fact that he was using what he was born with, such as Venom, you guys were just using, there's no music lessons, there's no, you're creating something new, only using what you've already been attracted to as a youth, as a young rock fan. And and you're moving, you have this full movement that's a global sensation on your own levels, and you're taking it to like, you don't have, hot chicks sitting on a car on your album cover in the window, in the record shop window. You have a logo that no one can fucking read with a pentagram. And at the time that you're doing this, it's Sunday morning and people are coming out of church walking by going, "Oh my God, no." And then they have to say a prayer. This is what I'm talking. This is Venom. This is punk. Punk is an attitude. Venom seems to be ultimately just another way to say, this is our attitude.
Yeah.
This is something that we are injecting on a global level, not even caring or knowing the future of what Venom would be synonymous with. But I feel like music now, extreme music, what they call extreme, Venom's extreme, they've taken it so many different places on so many different levels, and the assholes burning churches and killing people and themselves and eating brains and all that shit. That is not what you meant to glorify. You were glorifying the attitude that made people think that to be free and escape and be as artful as possible to an extreme is kind of a beautiful thing. Now, there's a lot of crappy people out there that were probably already crappy before they were already shitbirds in their head before they discovered what it is that you were trying to create and put forward to the music world, and basically destroy music a little bit, and basically destroy the attitude that everything in life is yay, and I feel like you guys just took it to a fucking whole other level and created a freedom. I
think other people have, I think when you go through and you kind of inspect about people like Mozart and Bach and people like this, they were playing with correct tonality and correct whatever, but I think there was a lot of anger and a lot of that stuff as well.
Oh yeah,
and a lot of bad attitude and a lot of assholes playing some classical music. I'm guessing that jazz kind of started out of some pretty dark places,
Yes.
and the blues, you know. It's about the people who put that forward, who aren't. I'm not going to say fake, but who aren't completely sold on who they are or what they do, and they go out to be musicians for the sake of it, or to make a living, or God forbid.
Yeah.
You know, that Venom was never about that. We were about expression, like you say. We were about you know, being larger than life.
Yeah.
Who do you
Yeah.
think is sort of carrying that torch now? Because Venom, when you came out, was considered pretty extreme. A lot of years have passed, obviously.
Yeah.
Do you see an artist or a genre or an art outlet of any sort that sort of embraces that extreme individual spirit the way Venom did? Who's the new Venom, basically?
To be perfectly honest, I don't see anybody. I don't see anybody that's making me sit up. I mean, the bands or the artists who are doing these gigantic shows are still, it's still Pink Floyd, it's still AC/DC, it's still people and artists like that who've always done it. I don't see anybody breaking any fresh ground. I mean, there are a lot of young bands out there, a lot of new metal bands, a lot of people, a lot of young kids are getting fired by them, and that's cool. That's very cool. But I don't see anybody breaking ground the way. I mean, we did it. We did a TV thing called ECT, and it was on British TV on a Friday night, and it was live. And we only did 3 songs. And when I went upstairs, went into the green room after we'd finished to sort of chill out, Lemmy was in there with Girls' School, and they'd all turned up to go, "What the fuck?" And they were having this kind of semi sort of a meeting, saying, "What the fuck is this? What is this? What the fuck is? What am I looking at? They can't play the guitars. They look like shit. What is it? Why are they here?" And then we played Hammersmith Odeon, and Lemmy turned up again. He's at the back door, and he's like, and Lemmy obviously wasn't a fan of fucking Venom. He wasn't turning up to look at Venom and go, "Can I have your autograph?" Lemmy was turning up to try and be informed as to what this new shit was all about, and if Motorhead had influenced it, which they obviously did.
Oh yeah.
What was his part in it, and did he want to be part of it or not?
Yeah. That's an interesting way. That's an interesting way to sort of, for lack of a better term, welcome Lemmy into Venom school.
Yeah.
To teach him, to let him know. It's like you may not see it on the surface that you play a big part in the world of Venom. Sure, we're a power trio, but you could say that about Rush, which is not even on the same planet. So
no.
Yeah,
that's very interesting. No, Lemmy, I'm sure, was showing up because he has friends working behind the bar. Could get free Jack, probably.
Yeah. You couldn't try and get my fucking rider. That's what it was.
So I played Hammersmith Odeon in December of 1989, and in the middle of my set, I paused my band, not mid-song, just mid-set, to take a moment and basically tell the people in the Hammersmith, that in the Odeon there, that I would like to take a second to acknowledge the influence of the records and the videos or whatever it was that had been made in this religious rock and roll church that is the Odeon. Now, you guys were mentioned. I'm, of course, No Sleep Till Hammersmith, Motorhead. Celtic Frost there's a infamous show that Celtic Frost did there. Jimi Hendrix played there. I went on and maybe 45 seconds, maybe a full minute of me just basically staring at the ceiling like it was a god and saying, this is my church. And I just wanted to share that with you, what's happening in my brain. So I'm not only freaking out that I'm honored to be here, but I'm honored to be here as a fan more than fuck all anything.
Well, just one more kind of angle to give you to show you what was going on at the time. Eric, who I've spoke about a lot, Eric Cook, rang an agency, a big agency in London, and he said, "Hi." And he was speaking to a guy called Nick Peel, and he said, "Hi, I've got a band from Newcastle. I'd like you to come and see them." And Nick said, "What do they call the band?" He said, "Venom." He said, "Oh yeah, I'm kind of aware of Venom. I've heard of them." And Eric said, "Well, would you come and see them?" And Nick said, "Well, yeah. Are they playing in London sort of anytime soon?" And Eric said, "Yeah, we've got a gig in London. Will you come?" And Nick said, "Yeah, I'll come." Probably mean no, fuck you, you know. And he said, "Yeah. Where is it? When is it?" So Eric said, "It's Hammersmith Odeon." And Nick said, "Really?" Eric said, "Yeah." And Nick says, "Wow, who are you supporting? Who have you managed to get on with?" And Eric said, "No, it's a headlining show. I've booked it." He said, "You booked it? You rang Hammersmith Odeon and said, 'Can I book your gig?'" And Eric said, "Yeah." And Nick said, "Well, whoa, how's it going?" And Eric said, "Well, we're looking at booking a second night." and and fucking Nick Peel from this huge talented agency sort of just said, "Wait a second, I'll just put you on hold." Nick goes away and he comes back and he's like, all of a sudden he wants to be our agent. He wants to book us around the world. He's got fucking everybody in the world interested. And it was just because this little Catholic guy from fucking Newcastle just had the balls to get on the phone and just think, well, fuck it, I'll just ring them up.
Yeah, there's something amazing about that very innocent story you just told. And bless Eric Cook, right? Bless his soul for believing and no faltering whatsoever. Is amazing. It reminds me of Lars Ulrich. It reminds me of that, little guy Lars is the one up at dawn on the phone with managers and labels and magazines trying to push his little band Metallica.
Yeah.
And that's how that's done. And this is pre-internet, can you imagine Lars's fucking phone bill? Fuck, I can't even imagine Eric Cook's phone bill. What the fuck? Yeah.
Going back to something you mentioned much earlier, talking about tape trading.
Yeah.
I was in a club here in Newcastle in Wallsend, and this guy comes over and he says, "I've got a guy in America, in San Francisco, wants one of your tapes, wants a Venom tape." I went, "Oh, okay." He said he wants to trade with you. I said, "All right." And he gave me a copy of this little cassette called "Metal Up Your Ass."
Yeah.
And he said the guy's called Lars Ulrich, and he loves Venom. He loves all English bands, and he's a tape trader, and he wants to give you this, and he wants a copy of whatever it was we were doing at the time. So that was my first kind of meeting with Lars, and his kind of ethos, and it sort of struck us correct, it struck us with me as being exactly the way we were, the way we were kind of doing things. Like you say, no internet, no telephones that you can carry around, and I would have had to travel to meet you, or you'd have to travel to meet me to just have this conversation.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's the whole thing is I'm attractive to the whole thing. I sometimes even get emotional about those early years of like a band like Venom or a band like Metallica, and then bands before that. I've been reading. I'm pretty much, I could say, done with Rob Halford's 2 books, and where he talks about just how, because I always wondered how that worked. It's like at first you don't have a van, like you pretty much like you're saying, you're borrowing your parents' vehicle to take your shitty gear to a fucking teen center to play 30-minute set, and it's an hour from your house, and you're dedicated. You're not going to make any, if anything, you're going to lose. If anything, something's going to break and you won't get to play at all, but you still fucking do it. You still get on the phone at dawn and you do it because you love it and you're attracted to the idea of this, creating some type of synergy and transcendent moment for people who will listen, who are hungry like you to be. See what I mean? I get emotional and I start talking like this, and it's hard to get me to shut the fuck up.
But it's like having a hive mind. Like last night when I turned up and there's all these people rammed in a gig.
Yeah.
And it's like a hive mind. They're all thinking what you're thinking.
Yes.
And they're all, you know, when I'm speaking to them afterwards and, you know, signing records and whatever, and like I say, there's all these new kids turning up and all this kind of thing, all of the same mind, all of the same, you know, the same conversation. And there's not one person kicking off. Everybody's pissed. Everybody's drunk. But nobody's kicking off. Nobody's creating any shit. All the girls that were there were just out having fun, and none of them felt any pressure from any arseholes in the place.
Yeah, I get it.
And that's everywhere. That's if you go to a rock gig or a rock festival, that's what you get. That's what we've always had.
Yeah.
You guys famously got in trouble with the PMRC, which is a round of applause, please. So my question is, was there, obviously you stirred up a lot of controversy. Were there times that you sort of played up the controversy, or were you secretly in the back room laughing amongst yourselves going, I can't believe these people are buying this?
Very, very much laughing in the back room. Very much. That was all our, I mean, we didn't, I know they weren't anything to be reckoned with in England, PMRC. So it was just handbags, you know, it was just people sitting around a table having something to shout about, and it didn't mean anything. Nobody ever created anything, or nobody tried to stop us playing. Nobody, if we were making money, nobody tried to stop that. Nobody tried to put anything in the way, so we just basically ignored it.
What's the silliest accusation you've ever heard?
Oh shit. I suppose the fact that somebody thought that we were somehow influencing and changing the children's minds, and that we were doing that deliberately as a kind of I suppose like a hypnosis. So we were putting these backward masking sounds and images and this kind of thing to infiltrate, you know, the teenage mind, to make them rebel.
Yeah. Well,
it's like if you're a teenager, you're going to fucking rebel, and that's the end of that.
Right.
Was it In League with Satan that had the backward, like Cronus saying something, and it had backward? You guys flip the tape. Is that right?
Yeah. There was quite a few bits like that.
Yeah.
But then again, I was doing an interview on BBC One over here on a quite a highbrow show with a guy called Jeremy Paxman, who interviews prime ministers and presidents, you know.
Yeah.
And there was this guy on. There was the two of us, and this guy was a church leader who had been given a grant, a quite sizable grant of money, to buy equipment whereby he could play our backward masking forwards. So he would play this stuff forwards, and he would have Cronus saying, you know, blah, 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 this, that, and the other, and whatever. And Jeremy Paxman would say, yeah, now, do you agree that that's what that says? And I said, yeah, I agree with you. And the two of them were like being smarmy about it. But that is from a record. And on the back of it, it says, we drink the vomit of the priests and make love to the dying whore. I said, and that's written in Anglo-Saxon English. It's written on the back. It's from a song called In League with Satan, from an album called Welcome to Hell.
Right.
And it's got a pentagram. It's got a pentagram on it. We don't need to hide anything. We're doing that for musical effect. It's like adding a violin or a cello, and then, you know, down tuning it or something to make it sound more eerie.
Me and my friends used to try to emulate that. We do that. If I had $1 for every time I said, I would yell down the hallway at school, "Summon the dead," or whatever, or, you know, I would be rich. because
Exactly.
it was the extreme attitude and how actually kind of silly sometimes that I would realize that, you know, that's not singing, it's attitude.
No.
You know,
It's actually it's across it's kind of music, it's kind of poetry, it's
yes,
kind of storytelling.
yeah,
You know, I met a guy. This is one of the proudest moments of my life. I met a guy, a South American guy, who told me that he wasn't doing very good at school when he was younger, and particularly in English, he wasn't learning English properly. And then he heard Venom and he heard Countess Bathory, and he looked at the lyrics and he looked at the history of Elizabeth Bathory, and he suddenly started wanting to learn English. And the guy went on to become a school teacher.
perfect.
And it's like, that's fucking brilliant.
Yes.
That's worth every aching leg I've ever had from playing fucking drums. It's worth every steps I've had to carry drums up and down in, just to hear one person tell you that.
Yeah.
That's life changing.
Yes, it is. Yeah, it is. So are you a good father?
I hope so. I'd like to be.
Well, isn't it interesting that Abaddon, hold on. I have to go back to these records because it says oh, come on. Where it says barbaric guardian to the seven gates of hell. It doesn't even say drums.
No. That's all part of it. Why just be the drummer?
Yeah.
Why be called Anthony Bray?
Yeah, here you go. Drums and nuclear warheads. At least you got some drums in there that time, right?
Yeah, we mentioned that. Yeah. That's all part of it. It's all part of it. When we got together one Saturday afternoon, I remember walking through Newcastle one Saturday afternoon, the three of us, and Jeff said, "I don't want to be called Jeff Dunn in the band," and I said, "Well, actually, I've seen this name, Abaddon. It's from the Hebrew, and it's from the Bible. It's from the Book of Revelations." And Kronos said, "Well, that's weird because I want to be called Kronos." And we were like, we didn't sit around and say, "Right, let's work this out." We were walking along the street, smoking cigarettes with our hands in our pockets. Right. And the three of us all came to that revelation at exactly the same point.
A walk in the park created your characters.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I'm telling you, it's a beautiful thing. I think that there's something really incredible about your story. Obviously, you're a parent. You're not this monster that you play in Venom. I feel like you sound like you truly care about people, and you're very, very intelligent and sweet, and you sound just like a great
Don't tell anybody.
Yeah, you just sound like well, it is what it is, but I'm not saying anything that I don't. I mean, we're not chums. I don't know you I don't fucking know you, but you're just very pleasant, and it's interesting. And you are you still married? Do you have are you married?
Yeah, I'm still married. Yeah, we're separated, but I'm married.
Okay, well, see, so you're not like this destroyer of all worlds.
No.
You are.
He just plays one on stage.
That's what I'm saying. When you're being an artist, you are. It's all about mayhem. When you're not being an artist, you're all about law and order and doing the right things and making sure that the kids get to school and have food and a roof over their. You're a caring human being who's part of society and.
But if I'm going to go and make an omelette, I'm going to go and make the best omelette I can make that day, and tomorrow I'm going to try and make a better omelette.
That's
I don't have to make a one better than Rob Halford, but I have to make a one better than I made yesterday.
The omelet, I can see it now. Rob Halford versus Abaddon. Omelet Wars.
Omelet Wars.
Dave is reading my mind here. Dave is reading my mind. Omelet Wars. Abaddon versus Rob Halford. Oh, Abaddon versus the Metal God. Right?
Exactly.
I fucking love it,
guys. With that, I'm going to have to.
Yeah.
Understood.
You're reading our
Understood.
mind. You're reading our mind. Thank you so
Thank you.
very much.
Yeah, thank you so much for spending time with us, especially on a Sunday evening over there in England. We do appreciate it. It's an honor to have you. You're a legend. We can't believe that you were willing to spend some time with us today. So thank you. On
Thank
behalf
you
of my
so much,
co-host
guys.
on behalf of my co-host Jason McMaster, I'm Metal Dave, along with our special guest today, Abaddon from Venom on the Talk Louder podcast.